All right. How's it going, folks? Right, all aboard. My team wanted me to do this with a train driver's cap and a whistle, but I managed to get out of that one. So I'm Matt Cropper. Like you said, I'm a product manager here at Intercom, look after mobile. Been here for not very long, like coming up on like 9 months, something like that, but we're working on some really cool stuff, and that's kind of what I want to share with you today. So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story around a feature that's actually being built right now. It is not finished. Wouldn't normally share this stuff, but I thought it was like a nice group of friends, right? Share it with you guys. So we're going to talk about how we got a pretty decent, chunky bit of feedback from a few hundred customers, and how we reacted to that, how we explored that problem, and then how we kind of use some of Intercom's like design principles to kind of help guide us. And then I'm going to show you what we're working on right now. I shared this with the Intercom folks on Friday, so literally hot off the press. And then going to share a little bit of the stuff that we're learning along the way. So, to start off with, for the folks who don't know Intercom, we do business chat software. So if you've gone on a website, you've seen the little bubble in the corner where you can start a conversation, or you see a note or a post or that kind of thing. We build those. And in the summer of last year, we launched a product called Product Tools, which basically lets you have these kind of pointer-style onboarding flows on your web app. So it's kind of like rich content, video, all that kind of thing. So you can walk through a new user on your product and show them the kind of things that they need to do. And it was really, really popular. But literally, day one after this launched, this happened. Can I have this on my mobile app, please? So literally, a few hundred people came in and said that, and we were like, oh, this is a bit of a signal. We should do something about this. So what we did was, we didn't build it. So we spent time really thinking about starting from the beginning here. So instead of just saying, oh, here's a feature, there's a load of requests for people asking for it, instead of just going straight in and building it, we took the time to really understand the problem that our customers were having and the reason why they thought that this was a solution. Bit of a hint, it wasn't the same thing as Product Tools is. So we started with the problem. So this is kind of like one of the driving principles that we have for building products. I guess a lot of us work in that kind of way, and we obsessed over this. There's probably hundreds of hours have gone into kind of talking to customers, thinking about this, understanding it. And we did a whole bunch of stuff. So we had all the feedback from our customers. We did customer interviews, quantitative type stuff. So spending time looking at how our customers are actually using our existing features to try and achieve the same kind of thing. And we uncovered a whole bunch of things. So this is just kind of like each one of these slides has got a whole bunch of different insights of things that we learned, and I'll share a few of those with you now. So the reason why that they were asking for this feature was essentially they had 4 problems that we're really trying to solve for. So they wanted to be able to retain customers better. They wanted to promote successful behaviors early on. This is why we do onboarding things, right? So that people knew the features that they should do to be successful. And then also, they were getting lots of questions from people that were really avoidable. So they wanted to reduce the impact on their support teams for answering what are obvious kind of questions. And then some obvious stuff around converting people from trial to paid, feature adoption, all those kind of things. And there were some interesting tidbits in there as well. I'll talk about a couple of these. So a lot of people's apps aren't really that complex. They don't need something as kind of, I guess advanced probably isn't the word, but as a kind of click-through, walk-through of your app. Often there are only a handful of things that you need to do to get going straight away. And so they were looking for something actually quite simple to kind of achieve that goal. And the other interesting thing that we found was people didn't know how to do a great onboarding experience. They were a little bit afraid. They couldn't figure out, well, what does good even really look like? Like, sure, I could tell a customer this, that, or the other, but what is great? And then the other thing that they kind of, that came out from all of this was just getting time from designers, engineers, and like to be able to prioritize this kind of thing. When you're up against money-making features inside the app, it's a lot harder to kind of see the direct line between doing a really great onboarding for someone when they use the app for the first time versus building the thing that you know is going to generate X amount in revenue, right? So they kind of rush it. So you get these basic things in there, and people, it's just not that successful. So we spent all this time. At Intercom, we got this thing called an intermission, which is basically a really succinct way of kind of describing the problem that you've kind of uncovered. And what we kind of frame this as is customers wanting to achieve those kind of jobs that I mentioned earlier on, but also kind of contending with that lack of engineering design time to be able to do it. and the ability to kind of keep it up to date. And so those are the kind of things that we kind of honed in on and wanted to focus on. And so from the point where we had the problem reasonably well understood by team, we went through all of those interviews that we did previously and started to pull out the specific needs that we were uncovering from all of these things, grouping them thematically. And then we went on to look at our competitors, people in this space. So people who do mobile onboarding, but also people who have message types of some kind that could be used for that purpose. And like understanding how those needs from our customers fit in with what other people do, what's amazing about them, what's not so amazing about those things, the friction, the pain points, to give us an understanding of the market. And then we kind of looked at our existing mobile offering and said, well, can we do any of this today? Can our customers achieve any of these jobs using what we have today? And surprise, surprise, some of it you could kind of do, but it wasn't awesome. So we decided we need to do something about it. So from here, we started to explore different ways that we might do that. So my favorite one is the stories idea. So Snapchat style, Instagram stories style stuff as a way to onboard people. I wish we'd done that, but it wasn't the right thing. And we looked at a whole bunch of different things. So like using conversations and bots as a way to onboard people, and a whole bunch of different things. From there, we stalked all your apps. So we spent a lot of time looking at the onboarding flows of a whole bunch of different apps. And you can probably see from the background, people are doing this in a kind of very kind of recognizable, intuitive kind of way, using this kind of carousel style onboarding when you use it for the first time. So we looked at what our customers wanted, and there was definitely some demand for those pointer style things. People who had more complex apps, particularly on things like tablet devices. But really the need was much smaller than that. We could help people achieve the jobs that they were interested in around kind of retention and onboarding their customers well without doing a super big thing. So where we went to was essentially this. Hopefully you can kind of see some of the grays on there. We decided to go with a carousel style message. And the reason was essentially that when you looked at all those different options for building this, there's a lot more alignment with the various different needs of our customers that we uncovered from those interviews that you can kind of tick off with this. It's not all of them, but it's a lot of them. And so we then kind of like went from this idea of what this might look like and started looking at different apps in the wild and saying, well, could you replace what you already have with the thing that we're thinking of building? So we looked at all of these. So on the left, you've got kind of mock-ups from what we thought this might look like. On the right is a real app in the wild. And so where we got to was this. And there's a few, we kind of peppered this with a few different things. So one of the things that we kind of wanted to include from the very beginning that we learned from our interviews and the research that we were doing was the ability to request permissions from right within the onboarding flow. So if your app uses push notifications, location, camera, whatever it is, you'd be able to do that as part of the onboarding so that when you get in there, you benefit from two things. If you've given them permission, it means that you can get going with the app straight away. And if you haven't wasted the opportunity, particularly on iOS, to pop up that system modal in context later on down the line. So that's one of the things that we were thinking of doing. The other thing here as well is we started to rethink a little bit of the way that we're rendering content in our mobile SDK. So the mobile SDK from Intercom is the thing you embed in your mobile app that gives you these features. And we really wanted to be in a position where in future, we were thinking about backwards compatibility from the very beginning. So the idea is that now, instead of kind of sending down stuff and then rendering the layout and stuff in the app there, this is all being done server-side and being passed down to the client and rendered in real time. And what that means is, because we've got much more information in the payload that's coming down from our server, we can do more complex layouts, and it means that when we introduce new ones in the future, they'll be backwards compatible all the way back to this first version, which is really cool, actually. So this is where we're at. We aren't very far along. This is our test app, and what happens is it pops up. This is coming from the server, so this is end-to-end. This is real data. It's working in our back end, and this is kind of where we're up to on iOS. Similar place on Android, and we're working at the moment on getting that rich content and stuff showing. So for the composition side of things, so the composition side of this is as important as the end user experience. We want to make it easy for people to be able to create these onboarding flows and do them really, really well. So there's a few things that we're doing, one of which is introducing this idea of templates. So giving you well-researched templates for creating a great onboarding flow that keeps it succinct. We'll tell you if you're going to do something that's going to make it scroll, too much content, all those kind of things. So giving you a helping hand, but not being too prescriptive. She likes it. And we learned a bunch. So Pratik, who is in the room somewhere, he's at the back hiding. So he joined our team for this project. He's working on our back and front end stuff. He hadn't worked on an SDK like this before. And one of the things, if any of you in the room work on SDKs, and I know some of you do, the quality bar for these things is kind of high. Because once you put it out there and someone's got it in their app, you're living with that stuff for years. So we have people right now using the first version of Intercom's SDK still from many, many years ago, and it is the bane of my existence. So when we were kind of talking about all of this, there were lots of conversations. It was really interesting to kind of push and pull at the reasons why we wanted to do things to such, a high standard or introducing what felt like premature complexity. In fact, it wasn't. It was preventative, and it was making us more, well, it should hopefully make us more successful in the long run. The other thing as well was having early alignment in the team from the very beginning was really important. So all that stuff I talked about earlier on with customer interviews, all of the kind of thinking and synthesis that we did, the team was involved in all of that. So sitting in the interviews, talking it through. And it felt like we were going slow. But what that means is right now, we're going really fast because everyone gets it. We understand the context behind our decision making, why we did things and how. And so now we're speeding through this stuff, which is awesome. The other thing that we learned was speed is everything. So because you're calling Intercom to get this message to appear, it takes a second or two sometimes. So we've put a lot of effort into how we optimize that. Really, really clean server-side code, really, really, really snappy SDK code to render that stuff really quickly. And like fractions of a second, you really feel that stuff on mobile, as you probably all know, right? So we're investing a lot of time in figuring that out so that then when I'm using the app for the first time, if this is the first thing I'm going to see, it's going to be there straight away. I don't want to have to wait for this stuff. And the last one, which I won't go into too much detail on, building a great composition experience is really, really hard. Blood, sweat, and tears went into the design of that and making it. And I guess the learning for me was, I wish we'd started that much earlier, the thinking around that much, much earlier. It was kind of complex. And I guess the other thing that kind of goes, like overarches some of this is the fact that, we could have easily built the product towards pointers type thing. We chose not to on this occasion. Sometimes it's okay to build the same thing on mobile and web. Sometimes it's not. And what we learned through all of this was through the research and talking to people is that actually on this occasion, we're trying to achieve similar outcomes for our end users, but actually my needs are slightly different on mobile and we want to do it a different way. And so that's kind of why we diverged and went down this road. So where we're at the moment, we're going to be putting this in our own apps shortly, in the next few weeks. We're going to be having a beta sometime in February with our customers and shipping around April. And these are the folks who are making it. They are nearly all in this room right now. And because I have a captive audience, I'm going to plug some stuff. So if you're interested in stuff around onboarding, there's a ton of stuff that I didn't talk about. There's an ebook you can download from our website. On top of that, there was a really great blog post came out from John Coleman at Intercom this week. He's a content designer here around how people use text in mobile apps. Really great read, worth your time. We have a program of blog posts around mobile coming up over the next few months. So talking about how the mobile team at Intercom has evolved over the years. Preview, it wasn't always that rosy, that kind of thing. We're going to talk about how we built our mobile strategy and what that is, challenges of building an SDK, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing that. So that's intercom.com/blog. And last but not least, we are a small and lovely team of people, and we are doubling in size. So if you know someone who is awesome and would love to kind of deal with some of the challenges that we're looking at, please send them my way. I'd be very, very grateful. Intercom.com/careers if you want to send them the link. And that's it. That's the end. Thank you very much.